Well, salutations, fellow vidiots. Welcome back to a very special episode of that full moon madness, baby. Those sons of bitches went a bit warm while I was prepping this. I'm gonna have to chuck the rest of them in the freezer or something, super chill them real quick so that we're good to go for the rest of this bitch. Or we'll just make do, I don't know. So we have for you today, of course, the Full Moon Fan Fest, the first of many that we're going to be doing in the future as far as these collab videos are concerned. Didn't get quite the turnout that I was hoping for. I think a lot of people were busy prepping up for Halloween now that things are opening up a little bit more. Everybody's anxious to get out there and do their spooky season stuff. And, you know, they just didn't have time to get in here. But we do have a couple of very special guests, and we do have some submissions from a very special friend of the show, my boy Andrew Woolerick, who you guys have undoubtedly heard mentioned in the past. In between their segments, I'm going to cover stuff like what makes full moon awesome, what's wrong with full moon, and the future of full moon. And then, of course, you know, we're going to have my favorite full moon movie of all time, some honorable mentions, and we're going to showcase a recently acquired item, a couple items actually, that make up my favorite item at this point in my full moon collection. This video also marks the debut of our brand spanking new full moon studio. It's not quite complete. There are a couple of finishing touches that I've still yet to put on it. Got a couple of posters to hang over here, as you can see. But you know, for the most part, it's put together, and we're ready to rock and roll, baby. Lots of great content's going to be coming out of this space. Hopefully you'll see a lot more, you know, sort of bonus segments like top fives and things like that. Lots of inspiration that just having a dedicated space for this is going to bring. So hopefully you guys are digging it so far, and I apologize for the glare on the posters. I'm going to have to figure out a way to light this bitch, so that's not an issue. Anyway, without wasting any more time, let's discuss what makes full moon awesome and why we like it, and then we'll jump into the first of our guest segments. So what makes full moon awesome? There's lots of reasons. There's a plethora of like good qualities, especially during like the late 80s, early 90s era of full moon, that make it like a standout independent studio, I guess, that's not operating within like the mainstream Hollywood system. But I think what really sets Full Moon apart from like all other studios is the type of movies that Full Moon makes, and that seems like a blanket statement because it is. But when you really get down to it, it's always been Charlie Band's mission statement that he's not gonna like make or produce movies that are all just about blood and gore, or, you know, just random stabbings and killings and things like that, because there's a billion other people doing that, and he just doesn't find it interesting. Now, you longtime viewers of the show know that I'm an avid gore hound, right? But every now and again you want to just watch some horror that's like on the more fantastical side of things, that gives you a little bit of a break from just the relentless violence all the time. And that's exactly what Full Moon does. They've always went for that more fantastical approach with like little things that kill, or weird sci-fi ideas, or fantasy shit. They have their whole Moonbeam label for the kids, which I always absolutely loved growing up and still love to this day. Especially back during the golden age of Full Moon, it was just solidly well-made, low-budget fun. Even the most violent Full Moon movie of the era probably being Castle Freak, you could show to your friends, and while it does have some shocking imagery in it, the level of violence in it isn't overwhelming. It goes a lot more for like atmosphere and mood than it does for heads exploding and people getting fucking throats slit and all the stuff that we were seeing in movies constantly leading up to that point. And we can't understate too how important the variety in Full Moon's library was. I will say this, at the beginning of this series, I clowned on them a little bit for being like the tiny things that kill studio. And that is sort of, you know, what you'll always associate Full Moon with, because the stuff that they have done in that genre is prevalent in the library, and it's all kind of the most iconic stuff that Full Moon's known for. But the more I've dove into it over the last year and really explored the library properly in a continuous fashion, I've realized that that's maybe 25% of what Full Moon has done over the years. But long story short, variety is another like important quality in what makes us love Full Moon and what makes Full Moon awesome. And then finally, I guess in my trifecta of Full Moon awesomeness, it would be availability. Now, this is something they've kept up to this day. But back in the day, they were no slouch when it came to that shit either. They had that deal with Paramount, so you could find the full moon movies in like every fucking video store on the planet practically. So it was never a struggle to get a hold of that new full moon movie when it came out, and you weren't missing out as long as you rented it fairly soon after it came out, because they were all direct to video anyways. So just having it at your fingertips was integral in your development as a horror fan growing up in like the 90s. Sure, you could rent Toxic Avenger or like Mother's Day or whatever at Hollywood Video, but I feel like Troma never had that presence in the video store quite like Full Moon did, at least not, you know, worldwide or nationwide. Pretty sure on the East Coast you could probably get a lot more Troma movies in the video stores. But in terms of the rest of the world, you know, Full Moon kind of had it locked down. So availability, and to this day, they have kept that part of their business plan, you know. Full Moon movies are available on their own streaming site, on Amazon Prime, and for free on Tubi. And honestly, Tubi has the best selection of them outside of their own streaming site, because they just pretty much all go up there after a certain point in time. So to this day, Full Moon strives to put out, you know, decent, fun little horror flicks that you can get easily and enjoy with your family and friends. Anyway, that's enough of my fucking yammering. Right now we are going to welcome a longtime friend of the channel and frequent collaborator, Chris Pico, the old ass retro gamer, and he's going to share with you his favorite Full Moon movie of all time and his most wanted item in his Full Moon collection. Cheers. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this so far.
Hey Mosley, Chris the old ass retro gamer here, and I want to thank you for getting the ball rolling on this Full Moon collab video. I've been a Full Moon fan for the longest time, since the early 90s when the movies first started popping up in the video stores. I've actually been a fan since the Empire days. I used to watch Trancers on cable all the time in the 80s. I absolutely loved it. So when they carried over into Full Moon, naturally I followed, and I loved pretty much everything I saw for the longest time. I was into it until probably the late 90s. But my absolute favorite movie when it comes to all the stuff I have seen within the Full Moon catalog is definitely Dr. Mordred. I watch this all the time. I bought my own copy of the VHS not too long after it came out. A video store near me actually put a lot of Full Moon movies up for sale not too long after they came out. I don't know if they just weren't renting or what, but I don't care. I owned my own copy when no one else did, which is awesome. But I love Jeffrey Combs in this part. You can totally tell that they were trying to make a Doctor Strange movie, but they just didn't have the money to license the name from Marvel. But I don't care. It is really fun, really fast-paced. That's why the movie's kind of short. But it just, Jeffrey Combs owns the part. Brian Thompson makes a great villain. Yvette Nippar, I think, plays a great love interest / sidekick to Dr. Mordred. Plus, all the crazy special effects, and I don't know, I just absolutely love it. I can watch it any day of the week. It's just really creative, kind of outside the box of the other stuff that Charles Band was producing for the company at the time. It was very ambitious, and I really appreciated that. And I used to show this to all my friends that would actually sit down and watch it with me. And most of them liked it, which was good. So there is that. But when it comes to the most wanted thing I would like for my collection from Full Moon, well, I'd always love to just get Subspecies 5 made. Like, get going on that, Charles Band. It is a goldmine. I just want to see Subspecies 4 Bloodstorm on Blu-ray. It's only available on DVD on the website, if it's available at all. But all the other Subspecies movies are available on Blu-ray, except for Part 4, which kind of doesn't make sense to me. I mean, they got Vampire Journals on Blu-ray, the spin-off, but not 4. How about we get on that? Please. You'll have my money.
Fucking righteous, man. Absolutely killed it, Chris. Thanks for the submission. Looking forward to doing more of these with you in the future. Me and Chris are actually going to be doing a commentary for Dr. Mordred in the near future. Because, you know, we're both fans, obviously. It is top-tier Full Moon shit, especially from that era. And you will be happy to know, Chris, that they are actually headed... God damn, that's a deep jar, and I've smoked a bit of it. Hold on here. I'll let Gingerweed Man guard it. Seems appropriate. Anyway, you'll be happy to know that they are headed over to Croatia, supposedly as we speak, to start shooting Subspecies 5. So, definitely updates on that coming in the near future. There's some other stuff that Charlie Band has, you know, went ahead and confirmed lately. Supposedly they have like 20 projects set to release through the end of 2020, and they've been on a good clip with it lately. But with that stuff and Charlie, you always got to take it with a little pinch of salt. Kind of have it. So we should expect 10 movies from them by this time next year. And if we get the full 20, cool, but I don't think it's going to be happening. Feel free to prove me wrong, Charlie. In terms of the Subspecies 4 thing, I think what's going on with a lot of that stuff, from the way I understand it, everything Full Moon did through the 90s, they would immediately take like the 35mm print or whatever and make a VHS master of it. And then sometimes that, 35mm print would get lost and they would rediscover them like later on. That just recently happened with the Moonbeam Classic Dragon World. Super stoked on that. It's currently streaming in HD on Full Moon Streaming. Should be a Blu-ray release coming soon. So hopefully we'll be getting that Subspecies 4 at some point once they unearth that original print and make like an HD master that they can put on Blu-ray. Most of that stuff, it turns out, seems to be a byproduct of the unfortunate realities of the direct-to-video market. So hopefully, that gives you a little bit more optimism with it, bud. You very well could be seeing that Subspecies 4 here real soon. And we're for sure going to be seeing Subspecies 5 in the near future. And that brings us to our next topic, what's wrong with Full Moon? Now, I promise that I'm not going to go on as long as I did about what makes Full Moon awesome, because obviously we like this stuff plenty, so there's more stuff that makes it awesome than there is that makes it bad. But the main thing that Full Moon has always struggled with is Charlie Band tends to be overly ambitious, and he tends to sometimes fall into the habit of quantity over quality. Thankfully, he tends to find his sweet spot and eventually balance it out so that you're getting a little of both. But there have been some missteps in Full Moon's history where that's concerned, and that is like a negative element on the studio as a whole. And that also sort of translates into promised projects that never end up happening, or other crap getting prioritized above rad shit that should have happened, like David Allen's Primevals. And while Full Moon always does maintain good output, it's like Charlie always promises more than actually gets delivered. I mean, this might be the first time in history with COVID where he actually has an excuse for some of that stuff. But it's also kind of what makes Full Moon rad, because he's willing to just go for everything all the time. So when they're on it, and we're getting a lot of good content in a short amount of time. Another thing that's wrong with Full Moon is they seem to have very slow customer service for such a small studio. I mean, yes, there's lots of fans out there, but every time I email them, it seems like I just get dead air. So I think I'm going to have to start just hounding them on the telephone. They do have a phone number that's available there on the website, and I think that might be like the old school approach that we'll get through. Why else would they even have it there, right? So we're going to give that a shot. They owe me a little bit of money, and a replacement statue over here. This little motherfucker with the beer can he's got a handoff, sitting down there between his feet, all pathetic. So they owe me a Joe Cracker statue as well. And I'd like to get that resolved because I'm about to be spending a considerable chunk of change on some replicas over the next couple of months. So it'd be nice to have a clean slate so we can proceed without any loose ends. Ironically, availability is an issue with Full Moon to a certain extent on the physical end of things. They have stuff out of print for long periods that it just makes no sense. It's like, why wouldn't you print way more of that than anything else? Because those are those staple movies that are always like selling, I don't know what it is, but they just don't. And then in terms of like some of their back end of their like collectible catalog, like the Badass dolls, which we will be discussing here in the near future. There's a lot of stuff that's just out of stock for long periods, and then it comes back in, but it's clearly like new old stock, so it's like, why wasn't that available sooner? Why don't you make more? Because people are clearly buying them. Basically, I just need the Ooga Booga statue, so I'm complaining about that, under the guise of it being something that's like wrong with the company at its core, but it is actually a real thing. Like Killjoy Psycho Circus just barely came back into stock. I've been waiting for that since like beginning of the year. All the other ones were in stock. I was able to just amp them right up, but for some reason the fifth one just took forever to come back in stock through Full Moon. I was this close to getting it on eBay. I wanted to give that money to them to complete the series. And the Killjoy resin statue is just never in stock either, and I don't understand why. That's an issue, availability on certain items that you want to actually collect. And that's about it, guys. Without diving into people's gripes that they have against Charlie Band himself as a studio in terms of output and all that stuff, those are the only things I can think of that are really wrong with Full Moon. And it's something that could be easily addressed and would lead to just a better situation for them. So they seem to be bringing stuff back in stock a little bit quicker. So I think the boost of these last few newer Full Moon movies being good has really helped Full Moon get back on the ball a little bit. I'm not complaining. We'll talk more about those movies in our final segment, but right now we're going to hand this over to my dude, Septum Sin from Septum Sin vs. the World. Again, longtime fan of the channel, longtime friend of the channel, and frequent collaborator. We do Inside Movies Galore together every Tuesday, where we go on and talk about various films with a group of our friends. David Streggy, who you guys very well might be seeing later on, runs that show. It's pretty fucking awesome. Good group of dudes. And I frequently participate in his weekly vlogcasts over there on Septum Sin vs. the World, where we discuss a variety of topics. So definitely check out his channel. Check out his segment, and we'll see you guys back here real soon with the future of Full Moon, and hopefully another clip from another friend. I think this is going exceptionally well. I got a good buzz on. I have 0 complaints. No technical issues so far. It's looking like we got quite the collab on our hands here, boys. Cheers.
Hello, this is Septum Sin of Septum Sin vs. the World. Mo asked me to show off my favorite Full Moon feature. I asked him if I could cheat a little bit because Empire was before the days of Full Moon. He said, yeah, that's a go. I can do that. So I wanted to share one of my favorites, which is dolls. Now this is a nice little creepy bit where you've got this little girl and her parents stopping by this nice, seemingly nice house owned by this older couple, little doll maker, and a couple other not so savory types stop in, and it turns out these dolls have a little bit more behind them than what they seem. This thing scared the crap out of me as a child. I mean, literally I can think of some nights that it was not so pleasant for me when I was actually down there doing it. But this one is by far one of my favorite of the Full Moon / Empire sets. Of course, if you want something to the side that's a little bit more Full Moony, anything from the Evil Bong series. I don't know what it is about the Evil Bong series that just makes me crack up. It just does, man. It just does. I do have a favorite, though. You talked about favorite pickup. This Empire box set. I just pulled this doll out of. I mean, this thing is epic. There's a Charles Band signature right there. This thing has an epic amount of movies, and some of these, as special features, have more movies on them. And look at this. That is beautiful. You've got all of this special art. It's really unfortunate this is out of print these days. This special set really it didn't set me back all that much, because it was, at first it was expensive, but then they had a hard time selling it, so they were putting it on sale, and I was like, okay, I'll grab this before it goes out of print, and I am so happy that I do it. It's $4.52 out of 600, but on that bad boy you got Metal Storm and the Metal Storm 3D version, the Dungeon Master, Ghoulies, Trancers, Eliminators, Crawl Space, From Beyond, Terrorvision, Troll, Dolls, Prison, Cellar Dweller, Catacombs, Ghost Town, Ghoulies 2, Robot Jocks, and Arena. And for those of you who love Troll 2, it comes on as a special feature to the original Troll Blu-ray. So you've got a lot of really cool stuff. Many of these are the same as the Shout Factory versions that came later, which are also highly expensive in some ways. And these are just worth it. These are classics, great sci-fi, great horror, great films overall. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you later. Back to you, Mo.
Fucking Dolls is epic, man. I mean, outside of being just one of the best killer doll movies ever made, you'd also be hard-pressed to find a movie that's as formative in Full Moon's, eventual style as Dolls. The only ones I could think of that go, right with it would be Trancers, Reanimator, and Troll. Also Ghoulies, so if we wanted to, round it out right there. Not sure how many fucking movies I listed right there, but those are all kind of the movies that went on to really inform what Full Moon did later. It's just various mixtures of the stuff that they did in those movies with a fantastical kid element tacked on top of it. And it's just rad. But Dolls, definitely a classic. If I had to make a top 10 Full Moon movies of all time, we would definitely be including Dolls on that. In terms of that Empire set, that is fucking pure sexiness. Anybody that says otherwise is a goddamn fool. One day, it will be mine. It will sit on the shelves behind us, and I will look upon it daily and feel content. You just absolutely cannot beat the selection of films in there and the quality with which they're presented. You are definitely right. The individual releases of them on Blu-ray are pricey as fuck. Dolls alone would be half the price I'm willing to pay for that set, which is $300. So as soon as someone's willing to let one go for $3, I'll pick it up. That stuff aside, selection is impeccable, artwork is impeccable. It being signed and numbered by Charles Band just makes it all the more awesome. But even that aside, on its own, what you're getting in that set is a goddamn gold mine. You're better off paying $300, $400 to get a secondhand copy of it than you are trying to collect those movies outside of it. It's a goddamn shame because the Empire era especially, above the cult video stuff, above the Charlie Band Presents stuff of the 70s, the Empire era is really Full Moon with a different name, And I would love to see those movies all brought back under one banner eventually, so that we can have them all at our disposal. Septum Sin was also kind enough to submit in our group chat his most wanted Full Moon item, and that's just a Blu-ray copy of the Gingerweed Man when it eventually comes out. He got that sick Evil Bong Stash Box Blu-ray set, signed and numbered a while back, and I'm pretty sure he's wanting to stick it in there, and I don't blame you. You should also get the Ouija's. Actually, I think it might have came in that set. I forget, honestly. But yeah, bud, that should be coming out here in the near future. Full Moon's been really on top of their releases lately, as well as their shipping, which I'm not complaining about. We already got a physical release of Don't Let Her In, which I think was the movie they did right before Gingerweed Man. So Gingerweed Man should be next. And then we should get Baby Oopsie and some of the other stuff they've been doing on the side. So look forward to that. Well, what do you fucking know? We ended up getting delayed. Had some company show up right as I was in the final stretch of shooting this and finishing up the Full Moon room. So we had to put this on hold for several days. But I think that it's going to be better for it. I didn't want to risk fucking up the final segment or the audio mix on this. So I just kind of had to put a pin in it, but it gave me a chance to get the rest of my posters hung up, touch up some trim around this bitch. I'll be wiping paint out of my nooks and crannies for several weeks after finishing this bastard. And we're just about done. The only thing I really have to do is finish up painting the hall over there, and eventually throw some carpet down in here after I paint a couple of more shelves. I've got these two shelves behind me here. Two more identical shelves on the side, just waiting for a couple of coats of black paint so that I can put them on this end of the room. And you guys can enjoy watching me gradually fill this shit all up. Got a massive pickup haul that's going to be arriving at some point tomorrow. So I'll be shooting that. You guys will watch me pretty much fill the top tier of that shelf back there underneath the badass dolls, which we will be talking about probably in the same segment. That stuff aside though, I'm back. I'm less drunk than I was, less sweaty, somehow with more glare on the fucking posters. I don't know how I'm lighting this any differently than I was before, but fuck it, let's get this done. And to do that, we've got to cover our next topic, which is the future of Full Moon. And it's looking like a bright future indeed. Anybody who's followed Full Moon knows that from the late 90s until the 2010s, it was kind of a rough period. They were really short on funds because losing that Paramount money kind of fucked them over for a while. So they were very dependent on selling merch to fund future projects. They weren't able to do much of that. Pretty much way I understand it is almost all of that merch sales came from, Charlie Band's Full Moon road shows that he would do. And then a little bit here and there trickling in from the website. So that's why their movies became so fucking cheap. That's why a lot of them felt like they weren't even trying anymore. And we did get some gems from the early 2000s, like, Evil Bong, Ginger Dead Man, a couple here and there. But in the 2010s is when they really had a sort of return to form. Let's be honest, Full Moon's never going to return to their 90s glory. It's just impossible these days. But they started getting a lot closer to it, and they struck this sort of perfect balance between the quality of classic Full Moon movies and the cheesy campiness of their modern stuff. But of course, after that era, we found ourselves in the modern times, and they pretty much continued that run of quality with crap mixed in the perfect fucking mixture, up till present day. And I would say in the last couple of years, they've gotten the closest to their classic output that we'll probably ever see them get. With the Deadly 10 initiative, we've got 4 solid films so far, those being Blade Iron Cross, Necropolis Legion, Ouija's Halloween Night, aka Ghoulies Go to Vegas, and Famalian Cosmic Crush. On the side of that, we also got a new entry in the Demonic Toys universe in Baby Oopsie just recently, which was fucking phenomenal. Cannot recommend that enough. On the side of those, we also got Don't Let Her In from Ted Nicolau. I feel like it was kind of his project that he used to shake out a bit of the rust before diving into Subspecies 5. So lots of really cool stuff that's came out from Full Moon. Resonator Miskatonic U also came out from Full Moon. We definitely are going to be getting a lot more of that, and Baby Oopsie. Charles confirmed at Texas Frightmare, and then even more in depth at his last vidcast that we're getting at least 4 more chapters of each, so 2 more films in each of those series. Anyways, I'm super stoked for that because at the end of that first film, they introduced a character into the series from another H.P. Lovecraft film that Empire was pretty famous for back in the day. I'm sure you can guess which one it is. So like I said, the future is looking bright for Full Moon Features. Has really since 2010. The last decade has been a good decade for the studio. But the last 2 or 3 years especially have been a boom period, and I hope that it continues for a long time into the future. And that covers the fucking future of Full Moon, guys. Now we are going to be joined by yet another special guest, our boy David Streggy from Inside Movies Galore and Delusions of Grandeur, respectively. He is the founding father of our weekly podcast group and a super rad fucking guy. He's got a couple of selections that he's going to talk about for you and some interesting admissions that he's going to make that we'll address after the fact. Cheers. We'll see you back here in a minute.
My name is David Streggy, and Mo has asked if we can contribute a video of maybe 3 or however many films that are your favorites of the Full Moon franchise. But my first film that I liked by him was actually called Parasite. I know that a lot of people hated it. It was actually part of the 3D stuff, but one of Demi Moore's first roles was in Parasite. And this was a film that was directed in 1982. It had a pretty decent poster. And here's the premise. In a post-apocalyptic USA, a doctor-scientist infected with a new strain of parasite ends up in a small desert town trying to find a cure. And I know this is definitely an Alien ripoff per se, but I don't know why, but I like the slow motion scenes. I love the fact that he has this sleazy woman running topless in a slow-mo, and she's fucking hot. I mean, it's low grade, low budget, but I love the creature that comes out of the fucking canister or out of the stomach of the dude. And it's just sleazy as fuck. I mean, It may not be the best graded movie, and IMDb has a 4.0 against 10, but it is my first favorite. My next favorite would have to probably be Castle Freak, which is a full moon feature, but it was directed by, I think it was directed by Stuart Gordon, and that was about a dude that lived in a freaky ass house that was inherited, and he basically was like this ugly freak who ended up starting to kill people off, but for some reason he didn't kill someone who was related to him. And it was freaky when I saw it originally. I think the remake was definitely as freaky, if not more. I loved both of the adaptations of this. They definitely freaked me out, both of them. The third one is in the Subspecies series. I liked Vampire Journals. Vampire Journals to me was kind of different. It definitely had some erotic scenes of naked women, and but it had a tone of its own. It had more of a interview with the vampire kind of a tone, which I did like. The Renaissance vampire over, and that's kind of the way that I feel about this. Even though I love the Subspecies franchise as a whole, with Radu, I definitely like the fact that the vampire that you're supposed to actually dislike is a music lover, and he has all these like minions and all that jazz. It's just all kinds of funky, and I like the fact that there's this lone vampire that seems to be less than as strong as the other vampires, and he's on a lone mission to find the one who killed him to begin with, or who sired the people who turned him into a vampire to begin with. He's got a love-hate relationship with his species, with the way that he was become. He feels like his life was stolen from him, and maybe at a time when he was actually still in love with life, you know. I think that's about it that I'm going to speak about. I mean, there's definitely more films in the Full Moon franchise. If I had to pick a favorite softcore porn from his Surrender series, I would choose Femalian, the original, and I'll leave it at that. That one was erotic as fuck, and it definitely had some jerk-off moments for me there. But in any case, thank you for listening. Again, my name is David Strege. I'm from Delusions of Grandeur, so definitely check my stuff out on my channel. It's at Delusions of Grandeur on YouTube. And you can find Delusions of Grandeur, the podcast, on iTunes, Google, and Spotify, as well as Anchor. So check us out. Also check out Inside Movies Galore. We're on YouTube as well. We do random podcast discussions, and your good buddy Mo here helps us out with some of them. So thank you and enjoy. Appreciate it.
Yet another fantastic segment, and big props to you, dude, for just openly admitting to wanking it to some Surrender Cinema Fare in the past. Haven't done it yet myself, but I'm not opposed to trying it. And Femalian wouldn't be a bad option to start with. As far as Dave's other selections go, Parasite is the only one I haven't seen yet. I would love to get that big box VHS, like, collectible edition that Full Moon had out for a while. I think that they have discontinued those because of some sketchiness we'll probably talk about in a future segment. Hopefully they'll put it back in stock or at least get it on DVD for us. I think that's kind of stuck in the same limbo that the rest of the Empire films are stuck in. But I have a theory that Full Moon is slowly acquiring the rights to those again because odd Empire movies have shown up on Full Moon streaming lately that weren't on there before, and I'm hoping that that's a good sign that eventually that library will be brought back under the Full Moon umbrella, and hopefully we'll get another run of that delicious Empire set that Septum Sin showed us earlier. But I love a good gimmicky 3D movie from back in the day. I think Metal Storm, the something of Jared Sin or whatever, is another Empire flick that they maybe did in 3D. Definitely on my short list of movies that I would love to see eventually. Love me a good Alien ripoff. You can never really go wrong with those. Creepazoids is another really good one that Full Moon did under the Cult Video label back in the day. In terms of Castle Freak, if we hadn't been interrupted, I'd still be wearing the fucking t-shirt at this very moment. It's one of my all-time favorite Full Moon movies. Probably the most violent Full Moon movie that they've ever done. And one of Stuart Gordon's best. I noticed Dave kind of like hesitated to directly associate Stuart Gordon with Full Moon, but the reality of it is, you know, Reanimator and From Beyond were both Empire movies. Then he did Pit and the Pendulum and Castle Freak for Full Moon, and then he executive produced a couple different movies that he released through Full Moon. So the dude has been associated with Full Moon for a long time. He also did Dolls, so really some of the most like monumental films in Stuart Gordon's career, actually pretty much all of them, were done under the Full Moon banner. But yeah, you cannot go wrong with Castle Freak. And then, you know, Vampire Journals is another one that I do enjoy. I prefer the Subspecies movies personally. I'm not really huge on like old-timey vampire shit, but I could see why it is some people's favorite in the series. And interestingly enough, it ties into two of Full Moon's newer films, those being Decadent Evil and Decadent Evil 2. So if you've not gotten around to seeing those yet, definitely check them out. They are loosely related to the Subspecies franchise through Vampire Journals, and I just can't recommend them enough. Hopefully in the near future, I'll be scoring the Marvin replica off our boy Andrew Wollerick. We are going to list off his favorite film and his most wanted item in the collection, as well as his favorite item in the collection, right now before we dive into my favorite film, favorite item, and most wanted item. And then that will mercifully close this motherfucker out, because I'm sure you guys are tired of us at this point. So, cheers, thanks for watching so far. As always, I have been Mosley. You've been a bunch of sexy fucking beasts, and this has been yet another episode of that Full Moon Madness, baby. The first of many in the new studio. In any case, referring to the old Facebook Messenger here, we have Andrew's favorites. His favorite Full Moon movie of all time is Subspecies 2, Bloodstone, and that is not a bad fucking choice, honestly. Probably still my favorite film in the Subspecies franchise where I pressed to choose one. I kind of like the first three as like a continuous thing. If given the option to watch any of them alone or watch all three of the first ones together, I'm gonna do all three of them, much like I usually watch Halloween 1 and 2 together, because watching the first one by itself just feels kind of incomplete. But yeah, Bloodstone, baby. And then after that, his favorite item in his collection is his signed DVD archive collection, which was like a Full Moon anniversary thing, if I remember right. I could be totally wrong on that, but he's got a copy of it signed, and I would wager that if you had that and the Empire collection, you'd be sitting on enough Full Moon dank that you could be quite content for many years to come if you didn't have any ambition to actually collect this stuff seriously. I think at this point, that archive collection might be more expensive than it would be to just buy the movies individually from Full Moon or on like eBay and stuff. I would recommend fullmoondirect.com, where you can buy movies, merch, and much, much more. But the choice is yours. Point is, where the Empire set is like a deal, even at a steep price, the archive collection might not be. There is some great movies in it though, and the packaging seems pretty impeccable as well, and I imagine it would look really dope sitting next to the Empire box. The fact that he's got it signed ain't nothing to sneeze at either. And his most wanted item for his full moon collection is a Blade Puppet Master replica, and I'm right there with you, man. We're just going to get mine out of the way at the same time as Andrew's. That is for sure my goal for the next few months, is getting as many of the replicas as possible. All of them are actually in stock for a change right now. So I'm hoping that they'll stay in stock and enough other people wait so that we can all pull the trigger during the Halloween sale and make it real fucking hectic for full moon and all the people at the fulfilling house. Hey, that's what they get paid to do, right? But if everything works out, you know, end of the month, when that full moon Halloween sale rolls around, I'll be buying at least 4 of the replicas. Now I'm sure I'll swing that either way if some of them end up out of stock when I'm placing my order, but I'm really hoping that I can get the main 4 like basic ones, being Blade, Tunneler, Pinhead, and Jester. And then I would really like to get, you know, Torch and 6-shooter, but they seem to always be in stock for whatever reason. I'm sure that the universe will kick me in the dick and make that not true after I get the first 4. But, you know, once I have those first 4 on the shelf, or rather along the wall over here with our Puppet Master poster, we will work on getting 6-shooter and Torch. Then I'll work on getting Homunculus, you know, Mephisto or whatever, Dr. Death replica that they're going to have back in stock again here soon. Probably end up grabbing him, Gingerweed Man. Eventually I'll have all of the replicas, much like I plan on having all of the statues eventually. It's just going to take some time and a considerable amount of cash. But yeah, Blade is right there in my most wanted items stack as well, man. Now all that's really left to do is to discuss my favorite full moon movie of all time, and my favorite item or items in my full moon collection. Alright, so this was a hard choice to make, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. There are so many movies that could have taken this slot. I thought long and hard about it. I had thought that I landed on my selection at least a half dozen times over several weeks there, or at least a couple of weeks, and then I kept changing my mind, and it turned out that the answer to the question was staring me literally in the face the entire time. That's motherfucking Doll Man, baby. Like, when it comes down to it, are there full moon movies that I like as part of their series better? Yes. Okay, are there full moon movies that I acknowledge are much better made than Doll Man? Yes. But when it comes right down to it, there's a reason that I have been quoted as saying this is the most watchable full moon movie, and that's because for my taste it is. Now, you know, just a little disclaimer here. I hadn't seen Doll Man since I was like fucking 10 years old, before I revisited it at my Lady Jessica's house on Tubi, like right as I was starting this series up. And I just immediately fell in love with it, you know. It made me kind of kick myself for not renting it more as a kid. But Doll Man, like, grew on me hard, and ever since then, it's a movie that I watch probably, like, once a week, you know, at least as background sound. And then half of the times that I've put it on like that, I've ended up just sitting there and watching the whole thing. So I've seen it, like, countless times at this point. I have no clue how many times I've watched Doll Man in the last 8 months, but it's been a lot. There's just something about it. I mean, of course, Tim Thomerson as Jack Death is fucking awesome, but him as Brick Bardo, I think almost kind of topped that a little bit. And it's a goddamn shame that they didn't do a lot more with Doll Man. We are going to do some special, like, segments in the future of what I think Full Moon's, like, Avengers team of superheroes could have been. I'm sure you guys can piece it together and think of some villains to plug in there as well. But it is going to be a fun segment to put together and talk about, so look forward to that. But yeah, if I had to pick favorite full moon movie of all time anymore, it's Doll Man. It very easily could have been Puppet Master 3, or Netherworld, or Pit and the Pendulum, or Trancers, or fucking Dolls, or any number of others. I mean, eventually I'll put together like a top 10 list. But if I had to narrow it down to one full moon movie that I can watch anytime in any mood, at least for now, it's fucking Doll Man, baby. There's a reason I use it as like my theme music whenever I'm not doing a review. So those of you guys that have followed like the pickup segments on here and stuff like that, and all the mail call stuff, know that Up until this point, my all-time favorite item in the Full Moon collection, and forevermore one of my favorite items that I'll ever own in this collection, is this Full Moon Christmas card that I got off my buddy Gorio Rotten, who sadly did not have time to participate in this one. I'm sure we'll see him in the next one showing off his Pulse Pounder tape or whatever. I cannot wait for that. But yeah, this is such a unique item that it was hard for me not to fucking love it. As soon as I can find the appropriately sized frame at Dollar Tree, it's getting framed and mounted on the wall somewhere. It's just an absolute, like, pinnacle of the collection having something like this. Which just goes to show you how much I really love this stuff, honestly. All of this cool shit and, like, this little piece of fucking cardstock is one of my favorite things. Currently, my favorite thing until I received these next two items. Now, I've never bought anything like this before. Honestly, I never bought anything other than, like, the actual media itself, for the most part, until maybe the last year. The Full Moon stuff, by far, is the shit that I've collected the most of, and have the plans to collect the most of in the future. On the side, I also started doing, like, the Miko monsters, and I'm really tempted by the NECAs, but I'm trying to stay away from that unless it's related to Full Moon, or something else specifically that I'm trying to build a collection of. But I've never been much for memorabilia. It was always just, you know, I want to be able to watch the shit, that's all I care about, you know. So buying more merchandise has been cool, and focusing it specifically on Full Moon has made it more productive than just running around collecting everything that I can, you know. The Migos are fun to find, but I only get one every so often because they're always fucking trashed at Walmart on account of little kids being fucking little kids. But I guess that's good because it's cash to put towards Full Moon merchandise and memorabilia. And this, I guess, would be my first piece of, like, non-official memorabilia that I've added to the collection here. What I ended up snagging is a couple of physical mementos of the Waddles mansion where they shot Ghoulies. You guys know that I love me some Ghoulies. I've talked about it in the past. Definitely going to be reviewing the fuck out of those movies once I get them in the collection on a proper format. We got the little Ghoulies statue back there. And I'm thinking that I need to find some way to utilize him with a new paint job, plus these motherfuckers, to make some type of little Ghoulies shrine. I don't know. Maybe if we make a shrine to it, it'll come back in print. I just realized, like, I had that right in front of my face the whole time for the other one. But yeah, as I'm sure you realized, the first one was, like, dirt from the grounds of Waddles Manor, or Mansion, excuse me. And this is concrete from Waddles Mansion. Now, is it concrete from the mansion itself, like a walkway, a banister, that fucking fountain where the little bastards popped out of? I don't know. But it's pretty fucking cool. I believe I bought it off a fella named James Howard, who runs this business called Monster Truck Memorabilia here. It comes with a certificate of authenticity. Looks like it's like kind of hot glued or something, or taped to the back. It's just taped back there to the back of every piece. And you might be asking yourself, who the fuck is this guy to authenticate anything? And I don't know, honestly. I met him through my buddy Andrew Woolerick, who we discussed earlier, and showed off his favorite film and whatnot. And he seems like he's got a good reputation of being honest. I don't see why he would lie to me about this stuff when he's also selling, like, authenticated movie props and things like that. If he did lie to me about it, it almost makes it just as interesting, because then it turns out that I've got this, like, random piece of lyre rock that is part of a fucking whole scheme to con me out of $30 worth of Ghoulies money. But I don't think that's the case. I believe that this came from the spot. It's not that hard to do it. I know people that do, like, murderabilia stuff to do with serial killers that go and get this shit legitimately all the time. So just going to the location and grabbing some dirt and a rock isn't that fucking hard. It might seem like a little thing, it might seem like an insignificant thing, but just having a little piece of the place where these movies were made in this room, I feel like that brings a good juju, you know what I mean? So I'm going to continue to try to buy these. I'm definitely going to let the guy know if he has anything Empire or Full Moon related. I will take it, like, every time, as long as I have the cash. And we very well might have a wall of like full moon rocks and dirt, you know? I don't know. And there it is, guys, the end of our very first ever Full Moon Fan Fest. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Hopefully it wasn't anticlimactic or some kind of a letdown. I think that it was a lot of fun. I think it's going to go together real nice. I think the audio track is going to be a bitch to mix. But once it's all said and done, I think you guys are going to enjoy it. It's given you some movies to think about. It showed off a couple cool items from Full Moon Collections the world over. And, you know, it's given me a lot of inspiration to put together future lists of Full Moon stuff that I think you guys will enjoy. I've been kicking around ideas for a while, like top 5 Full Moon villains, top 5 Full Moon females, top 5 Full Moon features, top 5 Full Moon flops, all types of stuff. And now that we're in this new space, I think I'm just going to be like extra inspired to crank that type of shit out. We also have a video coming soon that's going to cover what's been done so far as the Puppet Master game is concerned. And we have a video about the Lost Puppet Master trilogy, The Puppet Wars, that we will be discussing here in the near future as well. I just gotta get the relevant images and everything and put it all together into something that, you know, will get the point across. But we got some really cool shit on the way. We got some really cool shit coming in the mail. And I think we put out a really cool collab video right here. So, cheers. Thanks for watching. Not gonna give you the outro spiel. We did that a little while ago. I just want to say thank you. And I hope you guys keep tuning in because lots of cool stuff is on the horizon. This one's for you.